Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL scope and my team selection video for Game Week 22. And this is usually the part of the video where I say before we go into what I have planned for Game Week 22, we have to go and take a look back at what I did in Game Week 21, but I already made that video right after the Game Week ended. So if you want to see my rundown on what happened in Game Week 21, then you can check out that video. That link will be in the description. But for now, we have other plans because even before I do the plans for Game Week 22, we're going to talk about a couple other stuff. Firstly, I'm going to go through my weekly wildcard draft because I have updated it since the last time. There have been some news with the FA Cups and stuff that have changed a little bit of the things that's going to happen in the future. Not too much, to be honest, but we'll get to that pretty soon. And also we're going to look at my free hit draft for Game Week 21 and see how that scored in Game Week 21, and also look ahead for Game Week 22 and my free hit team for Game Week 22. And then at the end, we'll talk about my future plans in FPL as well. But as you can see, this is my score from Game 21. Just to go quickly through it, got 65 points, got a small green arrow up to 55k, hit the correct decision on the captaincy choice with Palmer. The transfer wasn't the best, Bowen to Garnacho for just 2 points, with Brentford on the bench with 6 points. I also could have done Salah to Jota. I was close to doing that, but at the same time, I wanted to keep Salah for the future. And that still might be the case, as we'll get into pretty soon. But yeah, before we get into my Game Week 22 plans, let's take a look at the updated weekly wildcard draft. And again, this is also a video that I did earlier in the week, or earlier in the past week at least, where I went through every single player in my current ideal wildcard draft and basically talked about how I like the players compared to each other and how I would rank them. And as you can see, they have numbers next to them. Foden is number 1, which means he is the player that I think is the most important player to own currently in FPL. I think that's down to a couple of factors. The fact that he's playing for Manchester City, which is the best team. He seems to be pretty nailed. I think he started like 19 out of the last 21 games. I think I read that stat today. And mostly playing 90 minutes as well. I think that's going to continue even with De Bruyne and Haaland coming back. And I think Foden has really sky-high potential in terms of points as well. So great fixtures, great team, great minutes. Everything you really want in a player, apart from maybe captaincy, but I think he's still a pretty good captaincy option this week. But that's just an example. That's just the number 1 pick. If you want to see my whole rundown of all the picks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all throughout the number 15 player in the team, then go back and check that video out. But there have been a couple of changes since I made that video, and that's what I'm going to talk about here in this section. And that's mostly the 2 midfielders. We have Olise and Mathias Jensen as well in midfield that are new. Apart from that, I haven't really done any changes to my weekly wildcard draft video, but I have also changed the numbers a little bit, so the ranking is a bit different as well. The goalkeeper situation is something that I'm sort of conflicted about because, yes, Dubravka and Areola are both most likely blanking in Game Week 29. There's still a chance that Areola plays in Game Week 29 if West Ham face Aston Villa in that fixture, but that is only going to happen if Aston Villa get knocked out by either Chelsea in the replay in the round 4 knockout stage of the FA Cup, or in round 5 where they face Leeds most likely. But if Aston Villa go through, then this wildcard team would not have a goalkeeper for Game Week 29. But saying that, I think if you have a free hit left, I think Game Week 29, at least for me, is the most natural place to use your free hit. It's such a nice bridge to just use your free hits in a game week where there's not going to be that many fixtures. So I always prefer this approach. I know there are like 2 different camps right about now. Some people prefer to use a free hit in like a double game week where they can maximize the squad for that really important high scoring game week rather than wasting quote unquote the free hits in a game week where you basically don't have much to choose from anyway. But I'm sort of in a different, I feel differently about that. I don't really like free hitting away perfectly good players just to get a double game week player who might not even get that many points in the other game. You could also easily manage those double game weeks without much hassle anyway. Use the bench boost in 34 and not do anything in 37, for example, rather than doing a free hit in 37. But I don't know. It depends on how you like your team or how you like your strategies and stuff. But I personally prefer to use free hits in game weeks where there are less teams playing and you just basically need someone to fill in for that game week. But that's my current plan at least. But if you do want to safeguard yourself for example, Game Week 29, then you could pick up someone like Mathias Jensen, who's the player that I have as number 15th ranked in this week's wildcard draft. And I think he is a player that has been very much not talked about. I think he's also one of the most underrated players in the league because he was really fantastic last year for Brentford. And the fact that he got injured sort of went under the radar. Like, not many people have talked about the fact that Jensen has been injured as well. And it's also sort of been a factor into why Brentford have been sort of struggling lately. But he's been playing now the last few games. He got an assist now this past game as well, and he got a lot of points, especially towards the end of last season. He was really good, and at the start of the season, he was really, really good as well. Like I checked out his points per match totals this season so far, and he's on par with a lot of really good names that you wouldn't really expect. So Pascal Gross, Richarlison, a lot of other like the really popular picks at the moment. He's better, or he's equal to them just about. He's better than the likes of Eze, better than Bruno Fernandes and Rashford by a wide margin as well. So he's been really good this season. And the good thing about Brentford is the fact that they have more matches than anyone through Game Week 22 all the way through Game Week 29. Because they have the double game week in Game Week 25. It is a tough double game week against Liverpool and Man City, but still, it is a double game week. Then they play in Game Week 26. They don't have a blank in 26, and they don't blank in 29 either. So Brentford have a lot more matches to play than the rest of the teams. And yes, those matches aren't the best, but that's exactly why you need someone like Jensen who can fill in whenever you have those blank game weeks, game week 26 and 29, which is going to be the game weeks where you're going to struggle to put out a full team. So if you're not free hitting in 29, I think Matthias Jensen is a really nice sort of differential guy you can have there. And then in the games against Man City and stuff, the single game week I'm talking about in game week 23, you can just bench him anyway. You don't really need him to play, because in this team, I don't have Salah in the team. I don't have Haaland in the team. You don't really need anyone else to play, because you have Olise, fantastic, who I'm going to talk about pretty soon, Jota, Palmer, Foden, Joao Pedro, Watkins, Solanke. These are players that can play every single week, so you don't really need Jensen for those game weeks. But for the double game week, he could be a factor if you want him to. You could also bench him in that game week, to be fair, even though he has a double game week. It's a really tough double game week fixture. But then 26, he's going to be handy. In 29, he's going to be handy, and he has a couple good fixtures between 26 and 27 and 29 as well, I think. So I think he's a nice little differential, and I think he's a pretty good FPL prospect in general. He's only 5.4 in terms of price as well. So if you need like a cut price option to afford the likes of Haaland and Salah potentially soon, then Jensen is a really nice guy to have. And then the other guy who has come in is Michael Olise. He is surprisingly fit to play against Sheffield United at home, and that makes him a really good prospect in my eyes, especially for that fixture, because I think that's a really good fixture for him. He scored 15 points against Brentford at home in his final home game before he got injured. Now he's back fully fit again. Apparently, Roy Hodgson said that he is fully fit, ready to start, or at least ready to play. I think he's pretty much ready to start as well. And we know Roy Hodgson likes to start him regardless. But Olise, speaking of points per match, there's only 3 players, basically, or 4 players, but one of them is Ben Brereton Diaz, who's played 1 game and got 7 points. But out of the players that have actually played this season, several matches, there's only 3 players that have a higher points per match total in midfield than Olise. And that's Salah, De Bruyne, and Heung-min Son. So yeah, De Bruyne even is someone like Ben Brereton Diaz, who hasn't really played much, so you can't really count him either. So it's basically just Salah and Son that have had better points per match this season than Olise. So I think he's a fantastic option. And then Sheffield United at home in the first game, just absolutely brilliant. Sadly for Crystal Palace, they don't have a fixture in Game Week 29. That will make him even better. The guy I had in here in this team before I took him out to bring in Olise was Mohamed Kudus, so I also think is a fantastic option as well. And he also actually has a chance of playing in 29 if Aston Villa get knocked out by either Chelsea in the round 4 replay or in round 5 against most likely Leeds. But yeah, Olise I think is a fantastic player. He's been absolutely terrific this whole season. He's on penalties as well. He took a penalty while Eze was on the pitch. There's still some argument there that maybe Eze is still going to be the penalty taker, but I think since Olise took that penalty and scored it, I think he should just stay on them. And set pieces as well, he takes some of them. Him and Eze are sort of sharing that responsibility as well. And I think now that they're both healthy, Olise and Eze, that's going to help Crystal Palace immensely, because we've seen ever since Roy Hodgson came back basically for Palace, whenever he's had to play without one of them, he's struggled. But whenever he's had both of them, Crystal Palace have actually looked really, really good. So I think Olise could be really explosive for this game against Sheffield United. And then after that, he has Brighton away, which is maybe not the best fixture, but it's a decent fixture nonetheless. Brighton, at least earlier in the season, were struggling for clean sheets, but now they're a bit better defensively. But I still think that's a decent fixture. Chelsea at home is a really good fixture. Olise, who also was linked with Chelsea, scored against them last time as well, I think. I think he has a lot to prove in that match, and I think he could do well in that match as well. And then mostly Olise, the reason that you want him is for the matches after game week 24 or 25 as well. Because that's when he has really good fixtures. So game 26, especially, he has Burnley, I think. And after that, he has pretty good fixtures as well. So I think Olise is a really nice option, really cheap. And yeah, he's just been a fantastic player this season. And I think he's sort of having a breakthrough season. So he's sort of flowing under the radar a little bit. Not quite as much as Jensen, but he is also a better player than Jensen as well. So I think Olise is also a really good player. But like I said at the start of this segment, if you want to check out my reasoning for all the other picks, including Trent Alexander-Arnold, Kyle Walker, Diogo Jota, Watkins, Solanke, why I still sort of have faith in them still, all that stuff, then check out my previous video, my weekly wildcard draft video, where I also talk about how this team is pretty cheap and you still have the money to upgrade. For example, if Salah is back for game week 24 and Jota is looking more like a rotation risk, you could do Jota to Salah and you still also have the money to do Watkins to Haaland as well for next game week, or Solanke to Haaland even for next game week. I think you still have the money to do that. So it's a lot of money in the back. It depends obviously on your team value and stuff, but yeah, you have a lot of flexibility here with this team, and I think it's a pretty good squad as well for the next few game weeks, even without using all your money. So I think it's a really good wildcard draft. But let me know in the comments if you don't think it's the best wildcard draft, if there are other things you like better, if you like more template players, if you like Spurs players as well. They might actually be more viable, especially if you're not going to free hit in Gaming 29. If you already use your free hit, especially, then obviously you have to prepare for Gaming 29, and then your wildcard draft will be entirely different. But I talked a little bit about this with Kevin, who is wildcarding and doesn't have a free hit. I talked about this on the FPL Scope podcast, so check out that as well, that video, and that discussion for that particular matter as well. But if you are not wildcarding or free hitting in 29, I should say, I think obviously Jensen would be there. Tony is someone that would definitely be there. Like Jensen, he plays all those matches. He's also a pretty good like big game player. Tony can score in those big matches. So yeah, Tony is also in consideration for this wildcard draft in general, because he has a double game week, and yeah, he's just a really good player. But especially if you're not free hitting in 29, then Tony is basically a must, I think. Also someone like Pinnock, who also is someone that can play in those fixtures 26 and 29 where you need them to. Those are some of the players that I would look into. Arsenal players, Saka probably is a better shout if you need someone for Game 29. We still don't know if Saka is going to play in 29 either, because again, it depends on the Chelsea-Aston Villa fixture. But just the other way around, if Chelsea get knocked out by Aston Villa, then both Chelsea and Arsenal play in 29, and that would make Saka a more viable option for the wildcard draft or the wildcard this week if you're doing that. So yeah, you got to keep those things in mind, and that's pretty much it for the wildcard. Let's move on to the different chip that we did talk about. I am going to use my free chip in Gaming 29 most likely, but if you're using it this week, I'm going to have a guide for you for what I think is the best squad to have in Gaming 22. But before we look at the free draft for Gaming 22, let's take a look at how I did in the free draft for Gaming 21, which I did before this long game week that we know of as Gaming 21, because it lasted 2 weeks, and it's been a while since I actually did this free draft or made this free draft, but it ended up being a pretty good draft once again. So this is basically the team, the free draft for, or that was a bit of a spoiler. This is the team for 21. You got to see the Gaming 22 free draft there, but this is my score for Gaming 21 with my free draft. I obviously didn't free it myself because yes, I'm saving it for 29 most likely, like I said. But this is the team I selected before the long game week, Gaming 21. It ended up being a pretty good game week in general. Gabriel and Estepinian, who I also had in my own team, I got high scores. Gabriel with 17 points, fantastic for me in any regard. Estepinian with 8 points as well, again, terrific. Palmer captaincy choice, 20 points, that was pretty good as well. Sadly, I didn't have Jota in the team. I sort of just like neglected Jota in the end after I sort of wrote him off as someone that I wouldn't bring in myself because I wasn't going to sell Salah. I sort of overlooked him, but he definitely should have been there over someone like Bruno Fernandes, who just hasn't proven anything this season. I don't know why I have Fernandes in this team, but a long time ago. I can't remember my thought process back then. But yeah, not the best pick there. But Tony I picked. 8 points for him. I actually was close to captaining Tony with this free draft, but in the end, I just liked Palmer as the captaincy choice this week, mostly because he's on penalties and played against Fulham, the team that conceded the most penalties in the league so far, and the referee who also has avoided the most penalties in the league so far. So that's why I like Palmer, and he got a penalty and he scored, so that sort of worked out nicely as well. Apart from that, the team was pretty much lackluster. Doughty got an assist, 5 points from him. Really like the look of him as well. So both Dotti and Tony were part of my favorite differentials. They both scored well. Ødegaard with 3 points and Saka with 3 points in a 5-0 win for Arsenal. That's just bad luck. I expected Arsenal to have like a massive win there, and I thought Saka and Ødegaard would be like the most nailed players to potentially get points there. Obviously, Gabriel got 17 points. That was really good, but having someone like Martinelli instead would have been much better than Saka and Ødegaard, but that's hard to know, especially a week before because of the long game week again. But yeah, in general, Tony, Palmer, Doughty, Estupiñán, and Gabriel helped me mostly to get 73 points, which would have been worth a game week rank of about 555k. So I think actually the last like 3 or 4 game weeks I've been in the top million for game week rank for every single free hit draft that I made. And obviously I have the huge advantage of having a free hit every week with that, but still at the start of me doing this free hit draft, which I started with in around game week 10, 11 or something, I think this season in my videos. At the start of that, I really struggled and really did poorly with my free hit drafts, but I'm getting better and better at it, which is going to be nice for me for game week 29 or whenever I use my free chip myself. But if you're fritting in this game week 22, then this is the team that I would go for if you are using your free hit in game week 22. And defensively, I don't really see that many clean sheets, to be honest, in these games. I think Man City against Burnley at home, that's a pretty given clean sheet, but at the same time, it's a really nice offensive fixture for Man City, so I want to use my offensive talents there for Man City. But yeah, that's just a little bit of a side note. But let's just go through the team one by one. But like I mentioned, can't really see that many clean sheets in this game week. So I think Brighton against Luton away might be one of the better shouts to get a clean sheet. So I picked actually both goalkeepers because that's the tough part about Brighton goalkeepers. They just rotate willy-nilly. It seems like they get like 2 games each here, 3 games there, 1 game there. It's impossible to know who's going to play. But on a free hit, you don't really have to worry about it because you can have both of them. So I picked both Steele and Verbruggen. I think Steele is going to start. He's been starting lately and getting a lot of points in FPL as well, because Brighton have been keeping clean sheets. And I think that could happen again. So Steele is in goal. And that's also a couple up with Estupiñán again in defense against Luton away. Another great fixture for him and another potential huge haul for Estupiñán, who's been absolutely fantastic for me since I brought him in on my wildcard in game week 20. So yeah, Estupiñán is also a lock into the team. And again, also Gabriel, even though Gabriel is going to be a bit of a doubt, bit of a concern for this game week, he is starting for me, assuming he plays, because I think Nottingham Forest is a team that you can really target against when it comes to set pieces. And we know from this past game week how good Gabriel is at offensive set pieces. Especially now that Declan Rice are taking them as well. That was a terrific corner from Declan Rice. But yeah, Gabriel, again, a no-brainer pick. I don't really have to talk too much about that selection, but at the same time, he is a slight doubt. He is sort of like a 50-50, it seems like now. He's going to have a late fitness test to see if he's going to play that match or not. But if he doesn't play, I'll get Alex Moreno off the bench, who I think is sort of like an under-talked-about defender as well. He scored that disallowed goal against Everton as well. But if he had scored that goal, that would have been a 15-pointer for Moreno, and a lot more people would have talked about Moreno going forward. So yeah, I think he's still a good option. Newcastle at home, maybe he doesn't keep a clean sheet, but like I said, I don't really expect many clean sheets. So I sort of prefer to pick defenders that have a higher chance of scoring points. So yeah, to just finish off the defense in terms of the players, the final bench option I have is Pedro Porro as well, and he's for sure a decent starter, especially if you have him still on your team. You could still definitely start him. I do think, however, that Maddison is going to be back for Spurs, and he's probably going to start the game, and that means potentially that Pedro Porro loses quite a bit of his set piece taking duties. And that's going to hamper his offensive production by quite a margin. He's still a really attacking fullback. Don't get me wrong. He can still get points from open play as well. But I think the corners have been mostly what has brought him a lot of bonus points and a lot of assists and stuff lately, at least. So that's going to be a downside for Porro. If he loses set piece duties to Maddison, it still might be like a 50-50. He still might keep them entirely because he's been so good at them. But that slight bit of doubt makes me just bench him for the free team. But if you still have him in your team, I'm quite jealous of you because I don't have him, and I'm kind of scared of him doing well this week. So yeah, he's in my free draft as well, and as my final defender there. When it comes to midfield, we have 5 players in midfield, and just continuing with the Spurs talk. And my captain this week, if I were to choose freely from all the players available to me it would be Richarlison. I think he has like the best potential fixture now. He's not going to be the best long-term prospect because I think Heung-min Son is going to be back pretty soon, and several players are coming back for Spurs. The African Cup of Nations players in midfield are going to come back, which means Kulusevski might have to play on the wing again. Manuel Solomon's coming back on the left at some point. Brendan Johnson is still there, obviously. Son is going to come back from Asian Cup at some point. And Timo Werner has come in as well, so I don't think Richarlison's playing time for the future is too good. But in Game 22, he's definitely going to start as a striker, and he's definitely going to benefit as well from Maddison being back in the team, who's going to feed him passes and stuff. Playing against Brentford at home, Brentford have been really bad defensively, especially lately. Like Mark Flecken in goal, who's had a pretty tough season. So I think Richarlison is the best captaincy choice this week. And again, like with Pedro Porro, I'm pretty jealous of people that have Richarlison in their team, and I would probably captain him if I had him myself. But sadly, I don't have him myself, so I'm going to captain someone else, and that is going to be Phil Foden, most likely. That's a bit of a spoiler for my own team selection, which is going to come up after this segment. But I still think Foden is a pretty good captaincy option. I'm a pretty huge fan of Foden. Like I showed you with the weekly wildcard draft, I have him as my number one pick, as the most important player to have in FPL currently. And I think he's a really good player to play against Burnley as well at home. Man City against Burnley at home is usually like a 4 or 5-0 type of result. And Foden has better minutes or chances for minutes than De Bruyne and Haaland especially, and Alvarez for that matter. I think with Haaland coming back and playing a part of the game, he's not going to start, but he's going to come on and play. I think Alvarez might be the one to be subbed off the earliest. So I don't really like Alvarez too much this week. I know a lot of people are captaining him as well, so fair dues. If you have him, he might get a penalty as well. That might happen, but I just prefer Foden. I think he's been better lately. Especially at home as well. He's just been absolutely fantastic. He easily could have scored last game as well, even though the numbers might not tell that story because he just couldn't get the finish off when he got the ball in the box. But yeah, I just really like him quite a lot. I didn't even talk about Walker actually. So in defense as well, I also have Kyle Walker, who looked really offensively minded in Game 21 as well. So I really like Walker as well. He could have assisted Foden for a massive haul in this past game week as well in Game 21. But Walker is someone that I'm also really jealous of anyone having him because yeah, he looks terrific as well. So yeah, the triple with City is also with De Bruyne. I have Walker and Foden because I think Foden is just better in terms of minutes than De Bruyne. That's why I prefer him slightly as a captaincy option. But De Bruyne in his own right, even if he plays for 30 minutes, we know how much he can do in that short time frame. He showed that in Game 21. And I think you just can't go without him in Game 22. He might even start. I think like this whole narrative about him not starting or starting, like we don't really know if he's going to start most games, but we know when he's fully fit and ready to play, he is going to start most games. Just a matter of if he's back to like decent enough match fitness now to play from start and actually contribute for 60 plus minutes. Because when he does, he's going to be a really good pick, and why I'm also sort of considering him for my own team as well. But yeah. Not quite sure about his minutes, but he might even be, like I said, if he starts the game, even if that happens, he's going to be subbed off around 60 minutes because he's not going to play 90 minutes at this point. I think that's fairly certain. So that's why I prefer Foden slightly, but I think De Bruyne is still a really good player because I do have him starting over someone that I really like on the bench that I'm going to talk about pretty soon as well. I already talked about Richarlison. Olise I've also sort of talked about already. Sheffield United at home. Just a really good fixture for him. So yeah, he makes it for my free draft for Game 22 as well. And then Diogo Jota, who I didn't have last week, and I'm sort of regretting that. And I'm just gonna need to have him for this free drafts just because of that. But Chelsea at home as well. Chelsea haven't been the best defensively all season. Liverpool have been fantastic offensively, and yeah, I just wouldn't back against Liverpool at this point because they are so good. So you could also have Trent in defense for that matter, but he's also a slight injury doubt as well. So he didn't make the cut over the likes of Gabriel, Estevena, and Walker, but yeah, Jota, I think, is just a terrific option. He's proven now both in the Cup and in the league that he can score from pretty much anywhere. He's a really good finisher of the ball as well. So yeah, I just really like Jota in general, who's also another player that I'm considering myself for this upcoming game week when it comes to my own transfers. Also have Darwin up front because he's also been terrific lately. He's been scoring his chances. He's been getting the chances again still. He seems pretty nailed for Liverpool. Seems pretty vital to what Liverpool do offensively. So yeah, I think he also has a decent shot to score a lot of points in this game week against Chelsea at home. And that's yet again another player that I'm jealous of. As you can see, I only have 4 out of these 15 players in my own team. So I'm pretty fearful of all these guys in terms of regular FPL. So maybe I should free hit. Maybe I would gain a lot of points from free hitting this week. But Most likely not. But yeah, it is looking like a really good team, in my opinion. Finally, there is a player that I actually do have in Ollie Watkins, and I do have a lot of faith in him because obviously I have him in my free draft. But Newcastle at home is a pretty good game this season. Newcastle have been pretty terrible away this season, and Aston Villa have been really, really good at home. So I think Watkins has a really good chance of proving his doubters wrong this game. And that's going to come into play for future plans for most of you guys as well. I actually think he is a decent captain's option here as well. I think he's third best option, maybe fourth best option now that Olise is back. But yeah, I think Watkins, he had a really good game against Newcastle at Villa Park last season, so he can do that once again. And yeah, he's been terrific at home. Newcastle have been really bad away, so I just think he's a really good option. And then finally, my final, my main bench option, who could come in if one of the attacking players don't play, is Gabriel Jesus. I just really like Arsenal once again in this fixture against Nottingham Forest at home, and I still can't really fit them in because yeah, I don't know. I've lost faith in Saka and Odegaard after this past game week, but I do think Arsenal will score a lot of goals against Nottingham Forest. So I think Jesus is a decent candidate to start. If you don't feel good about De Bruyne's minutes, then you could definitely start Jesus over De Bruyne. If you don't feel good about Olise being back from injury and performing well straight away, then you can also bench him and start Jesus instead if you do the free hit draft. But I think Jesus is a decent player to have, and yeah, if we already had the clarity that he's going to play in Game 29, I think he would be a decent shout for the weekly wildcard draft as well, because Arsenal players have not been talked about that much because they've been struggling a bit lately. But now they won 5-0 last game. Bit of a flattering result, but still, they're looking back to close to their best at least, especially Martinelli last game as well. Maybe he's someone that you could consider as well in free hits. But yeah, I really like Jesus, but I just don't like him enough compared to the 7 players that I have starting in this team in attack. So yeah, he's the final bench player because yeah, I already talked about Moreno and Pedro Porro as well. So that's basically the team. I even have Gabriel Jesus as my favorite forward differential because I don't think Darwin or Watkins can really be described as differentials at this point. So yeah, if you're feeling frisky, and I think Jesus is a decent option. It's kind of interesting because Jesus was sort of like the main guy most people had in attack before the start of the season, before Game Week 1. Then he got injured and people had to swerve, and they chose Watkins actually, a lot of people. And that's worked out well, especially if you kept him for that Brighton game with the 23 points. But yeah, at the start of the season, Jesus was such a popular pick, but then he got injured and now he's back, and now he's not that popular of a pick. That's obviously down to a little bit the fact that Arsenal just haven't looked the same offensively this season. And as someone that had Jesus for most of last season as well, he can be a really frustrating player to own. He is probably worse than Darwin when it comes to missing big chances, Jesus, but he's just injured so much that we don't really notice as much. But when he's on form, he's really, really good. We remember that 19 or 21 pointer that he had in Game Week 2 last season. He can get those type of returns. So yeah, I just really like him a lot in general. But let's move on to my current plans. This has been quite a long video because there's been a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's move on to my own plans. I'm not going to use my free hit. I am going to do one of 3 options, I think, most likely. So either I just stand pat because my main issue is the fact that I don't have enough money to do the upgrade from Alvarez to Haaland when Haaland's going to be back starting from Game Week 23 onwards. Most likely he's going to be back starting from Game Week 23 onwards. I really want to get rid of Alvarez. I don't know, maybe I don't have to get rid of him. Maybe I could sell Watkins or Solanke, but like I showed you in my weekly wildcard draft, I think Watkins or Solanke are really good options going forward in general. Solanke has a fantastic fixture next game week against Nottingham Forest at home. Watkins, for that matter as well, has Sheffield United away next game week. So the player I really want to sell for Alvarez or for Haaland next week is Alvarez. So yeah, I'm trying to get enough money to do that move. But yeah, there's a couple ways I can achieve that. And one of them is just standing pat, just getting 1 more week's worth of data. Maybe Watkins blanks and Saka does amazingly. So maybe I want to keep Saka rather than Watkins. So that is like a good option. Maybe we get news after a week. We get news that Salah is definitely going to be out for Game Week 25 as well. Then I would definitely sell him. But yeah, just to touch on Salah first, because he's like the main guy this game week. It feels like. I personally think he's going to be back earlier than expected. When he returned to Liverpool from African Cup of Nations, when Egypt were still in the African Cup of Nations, now they are knocked out. So Salah is just an injury thing now at this point. When he first returned to Liverpool Klopp, and yeah, the message was basically he's going to be back around the final, maybe semi-final, final, semi-final, and that's well in advance of Game Week 25, which is a week after where the African Cup of Nations final is going to be. So that means that he's going to be, like, if that prognosis was correct, then he would be on par to play for Game Week 24, and then obviously for Game Week 25 as well, the double game week where he has 2 really good fixtures. But then obviously we got the news that he's going to be out for between 21 and 77 days. This piece of news was a bit later than the original news about his injury, and it was also a bit after he got a lot of backlash for basically going away from Egypt's squad in African Cup of Nations to be in Liverpool instead and get rehabilitation there. So I think maybe this was sort of like a PR move just to say that, oh, he is actually more injured than feared and he needed to go back to Liverpool to get the best treatment. It's just speculation on my part, but I just have like a gut feeling that Salah's going to be back for at least Game Week 25, but potentially also Game Week 24 when he has Burnley at home. So I really just don't want to sell Salah, especially seeing as I have a lot of value tied into him at this moment. I had him since the start of the season, since Game Week 1. I haven't sold him the entire season. He's my only remaining member, so maybe that's why I'm a bit biased. I just love Salah. He's obviously the greatest Fantasy Premier League player of all time. So maybe that's why I'm a bit biased and I'm trying to like see the best positive outcomes of Salah, but I just have a hunch that he's going to be back for Game 24. And that's why I kind of want to keep him. But if we get even more news now, maybe Klopp comes out and says, no, he's definitely out for longer than we expected and all that stuff. If he just doubles down on that message, then yeah, I probably have to sell him. And that would be an easy way to fund the Alvarez to Holland move next week, to just do Salah down to someone. And I think De Bruyne is the highest upside player potentially here. But yeah, especially if we get the news that Salah is out for a long time, then Jota becomes a much better option. So it would be between Jota or De Bruyne who I would replace Salah with if it comes down to that. But like I said, I just have this little hunch that Salah is going to be back potentially for Game Week 24 and at least Game Week 25. So I really just want to keep him at least for one more week and see if we get more news. But yeah, it might just be a desperate attempt of just keeping Salah for the entirety of the season still from me. So take it with a pinch of salt if you think that's the case here. But yeah, if I don't sell Salah, I have a couple options. Like I said, I could stand pat and have a better chance of knowing what to do next week. But I think most likely in Game Week 23 with Watkins playing Sheffield United away, because it is either Watkins or Saka that I ever have to sacrifice, because I can't really see anyone else apart from Salah, Watkins and Saka that I can sacrifice to have enough money to go from Alvarez to De Bruyne. It would either be Watkins or Saka. But yeah, Watkins has a much better fixture in 23 than Saka. And also, if I want to sell Saka in Game Week 23, then I've kind of missed the boat on Olise playing in Sheffield United at home this week, or even Kudus if I want to go with Kudus, who plays Bournemouth at home this week. I'm sort of missing the boat on those players if I don't do that transfer this week. So I was sort of leaning towards just standing pat and just waiting one more week, but I sort of also want to attack this game week and just go for immediate points, because I think Olise is going to be someone that most people are just going to be too scared to bring in because he's not going to play in 29. I sort of have that in mind already, that I'm going to use my free hitting game in 29, and I have that basically advantage that I can bring in players more for the short term with that in mind. I think Olise is just someone that I really like the look of, and I thought like when he's healthy to play and he has good fixtures, I'm going to get him in, and it seems like the time because he is fully fit apparently. And I just really like doing this. I really like the thought of this transfer. It's just the fact that Arsenal, they did win 5 in the last game. They have looked better lately, and Nottingham Forest conceded a lot of goals. So I still think it is like a decent game week to keep Saka, obviously, because yeah, he is the most highly owned midfielder in the game still, I think. So yeah, it's a big risk to sell him. So yeah, like the chicken in me would like to just stand pat and then just do something else next week. And like the sensible version of me would probably sell Salah, because yeah, it's just hopeful that he's going to be back earlier than expected. But yeah, if I want to be gutsy, I do Saka to Olise and just live with the choice there, because I think if I'm keeping Salah anyway, that's going to be a pretty big risk, because I think a lot of people are going to sell him now, and I don't think most people selling him will be able to get him back in 25, because they're going to bring in Holland, they might bring in De Bruyne now as well for Salah. It's just going to be tough to get Salah back and have De Bruyne as well. So yeah, I'm kind of putting all my eggs in one basket there and hoping Salah will be back, especially for 20 or 25, but maybe 24 as well. And I might even triple captain him in 25 if he's back ready to play. in that double game week. It is, however, the fact that they do play the Carabao Cup final just a couple days after Game Week 25 concludes, the second game in Game Week 25. So that might hinder me going with Salah as a triple captaincy option that week. But yeah, I just like the thought of Salah as potential captain or triple captaincy choice when most people don't have him. I just think that's a really nice thought. But at the same time, it is kind of risky. It might not be the most sensible way to do or sensible thing to do. So yeah, I'm a bit uneasy about what I should do there. But yeah, I have a pretty big conundrum there. But yeah, when it comes to the rest of the team, let's just go quickly through it. Ariola against Bournemouth at home. Don't really expect much from that game. I also have Solanke starting. So yeah, I think that could be a tough game for Ariola. But I still think it's a better fixture than Dubravka against Aston Villa away. Because again, I have the same thing there. Watkins playing as my goalkeeper. So yeah, I'd rather go with Ariola there. Trent, who is also a slight doubt, I guess, or now he's actually not a doubt. I should probably remove the yellow flag that he has there, because he did come on and play 25 minutes this past game. But he is a doubt to start the game, at least against Chelsea. I think he's going to play a part anyway. So yeah, even if he gets like 30 minutes, that's obviously going to suck because he's not going to have that clean sheet potential. But I think the offensive potential, even in 30 minutes for Trent, is much better than most defenders, at least. So I don't really mind that either, but hopefully he starts, and I think most likely he starts that game, so I think he's going to be a decent option. Estupinan, I mentioned him several times already in this video. I think he's just terrific. Luton away is a great fixture. Gabriel, again, also mentioned him earlier. If he plays, he's a really good option against Nottingham Forest away. If he doesn't play, I still get Brantwaite in against Fulham. I think that's also a decent player to have if Gabriel doesn't play. But if Gabriel plays, I think he has a pretty good score in waiting for him this week. Palmer against Liverpool away, I just don't dare benching Palmer. I'm pretty happy to start Palmer in that game. So I think that's all right. Saka against Nottingham Forest, like I said, I think it has a good fixture. I think Olise against Sheffield United is an even better fixture. Just remains to be seen if I do that move or not. Foden, my captain, like I just mentioned, I think he's terrific. Don't really have to talk more about him. Garnacho against Wolves away, he's sort of also another differential sort of player. Not sure about Man United against Wolves away. I think it will be kind of a struggle for Garnacho, so maybe I could do something else there. That is obviously, if I do the Salah to De Bruyne move or Salah to Jota, and I would have to start the player that I would bring in, then Garnacho would definitely be the one that I would bench for my starting squad. But still, we've seen Garnacho impress in games before. He has that like all of a sudden 13-point type of game in him. So yeah, I don't mind that fixture too much. Wolves have also been a team that can concede a goal or two, even though they kept the clean sheet last time. But yeah, not too excited about Garnacho. Watkins against Newcastle at home, like I mentioned, I think that's a great fixture. Solanke against West Ham could easily do damage there in that game. Bournemouth strikers in general have scored a lot of goals against West Ham historically, so he could score there. And now Alvarez against Burnley, I still think he's a decent shout. He's going to be on penalties as long as Holland doesn't start, and he's not going to start. He's going to come on. And he gets around 60 minutes at least, I think, against Burnley at home. Maybe even gets 90 minutes. So he is still a decent option, Alvarez, but not someone that I'm entirely excited about in general. On my bench, Dubravka, Brantwaite. Gusto is probably not going to play even because he's still like sort of not training well. And Salah, who's also, yeah, going to be unless there's like a miracle and he's back already, he's not going to play this game week either. But yeah, I'll still wait for the press conference news, I guess, tomorrow or today if you're watching it on the Tuesday. So that's pretty much my team. Let me know in the comments what you would do in my situation. Would you stand pat and just wait another week? Would you do a proactive move now with Saka to Olise and basically just take a punt on Olise when most people don't have him and go away from Saka, who is like a super high level player? Or would you just basically tell it like it is and just sell Salah, because most people are doing that now anyway? And the latest prognosis is officially that he's going to be out for 24 and potentially miss, most likely not, but potentially miss the first game in Game 25, and the fact that he has the Carabao Cup after the final game in Game 25 as well. So maybe the most sensible move, but I feel a bit like not sensible. so maybe I won't do that. But either way, that has been it for the video. It's been a 40-minute type of video, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Or if you bounced around through this video, I'll have the timestamps at the bottom there anyway. So yeah, check out any segment that you like. Maybe you're not free hitting, maybe you're not too interested in that. Maybe you're not wildcarding, maybe you're not too interested in that. But I hope you were at least entertained. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.